Students, we are continuing chapter 4 alternate sectors of power of political science class 12th. Today we are going to study pillars of ASEAN community, which is a continuation of the topic ASEAN. So ASEAN has three main pillars and it has amply demonstrated its power and influence on various occasions. That it is a very powerful organization in this part of the world and its role has been effective in various fields. Let us study the pillars of ASEAN one by one. The first pillar of ASEAN that we are going to study is ASEAN Security Community, or it is also known as ASEAN Political Security Community, that is APSC. Okay. Now in the first year of its existence, ASEAN worked as a security community. Alright, that is what it was formed for. But then by the 1976 Kuala Lumpur Declaration, it proclaimed ASEAN states, that Southeast Asian region, as a zone of peace, freedom and neutrality. In the summit held that year, the heads of the states signed a treaty of Amity and Concord. Okay, so they signed a treaty of Amity and Concord of friendship and cooperation. Amity and Concord means friendship and cooperation. So that treaty said that the members will uphold peace and neutrality and stability in the region, that there will be peace in the region, they will be neutral to each other and there will be stability in the region. Okay. They also promised cooperation and non-interference in the sovereignty of the country. Respect for national differences. Not all countries are the same. There are some differences in every country and so they will respect those differences. Sovereign rights, that is the territorial rights of the countries. They will not interfere in it. Okay. Avoid territorial disputes to turn into armed conflicts. So this is very important, that they wanted to avoid any kind of territorial disputes amongst each other, and even if there were disputes, they wanted to solve them by dialogue and not turn them into armed conflicts. Now keeping this in mind, they formed an ASEAN Regional Forum, which was established in 1994, okay, and its last meeting, that is the 26th ARF, the meeting was held in Bangkok, Thailand on 4th August 2019. That is the last meeting that was held of ARF. So ASEAN Regional Forum was to work in collaboration with each other, and the main objectives of the forum were to foster constructive dialogue, consultation on political and security issues, contribution towards confidence building. So these were the main objectives of the ARF. Okay. Foster constructive dialogue means they will talk properly, constructively. It will not be destructive. It will not be to oppose each other, but to work in harmony. Consultation on political and security issues. If there are any issues between the countries, there will be consultation on it. Contribution towards confidence building, that they will be confident about themselves and each other will contribute towards it. Which were the members of ARF? The members of ARF are USA, Australia, Canada, China, EU, European Union, India, Japan, New Zealand and Russia. So these members countries discussed the major regional security issues such as transnational crimes, terrorism, developments in South China Sea and Korean Peninsula. Okay, their main objective, like we said, was to promote multilateral security dialogue with outside powers. So whatever outside powers are there, they needed to maintain security dialogues with these outside powers. That was the main agenda of the ARF. Okay. So that is the ARF, which is a part. It is a part of the Asian Security Community. Our second pillar is ASEAN Economic Community. Okay. We know that mainly it was formed as an economic organization. Its economy is less developed than that of United States and European Union, but still it is a fast growing economy. It is a smaller than US or EU, but it is a very fast growing economy. What are the main objectives of the economic union? Main objectives of the economic community were to create a common market and production base. That there should be a common market and production base, and keeping this in mind, there were efforts made to speed up the creation of ASEAN Free Trade Area, that is AFTA. A pact was also signed regarding intellectual property rights. Second is aid to social and economic development, aid social and economic development, to help social and economic development of the region, of the Southeast Asian region. That was another attempt of ASEAN Economic Community. Next is to improve ASEAN dispute settlement mechanism. So, whatever disputes were there because of economic disputes, because of economy, whatever disputes were there was a mechanism that was set up to settle those disputes. I have already told you, create an FTA for investment of labor and services, that is an AFTA, ASEAN Free Trade Association, and this would be benefiting, or this would be with help of USA, China and WTO. WTO is World Trade Organization. Alright. So, that was the main agenda of ASEAN Economic Community. Under this, at the Bangkok summit, a decision was taken to promote dialogue with outside powers. Accordingly, ASEAN representatives negotiated with the United States and European powers for freer world trade under WTO. Okay. So, this was ASEAN Economic Community. The next in our series is ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community. I hope you can see that. ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community is ASCC. So, what is the purpose of ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community? ASEAN Social Culture Community endeavours to promote cultural activities. These countries have had effective system of communication. This helped regular telecasts of cultural programs throughout the region. Mutual cooperation also increased in the fields of population control, sports and higher education. Visa rules were also relaxed to encourage terrorism. Okay. So, it is a resilient community and it has the capacity to adapt, respond to social and economic disasters. That is what it is planning to do as a socio-cultural community. Cultural exchange, climate change, these are the topics that was major important for this community to discuss. To discuss conflicts in the region, and annual meets to discuss East Asian cooperation. That is the main purpose of this socio-cultural community. Okay. So, these are the three pillars of ASEAN. We studied about ASEAN Security Community, ASEAN Economic Community, okay, ASEAN Regional Forum and ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community. Alright, this is what we have studied till now. Our next topic for today is ASEAN Vision 2020. Okay, ASEAN had adopted a vision on 15th of December 1997 at Kuala Lumpur. Okay, that has been known as ASEAN Vision 2020. As to what till 2020, what would ASEAN would have achieved? What was this vision? It was supposed to be a vision for ASEAN on the basis of realities of that time and prospects in the decades leading to the year 2020. Till what were the realities when ASEAN was framed from 1997 till 2020, whatever would have happened, how has ASEAN become successful, where has ASEAN reached and what will ASEAN do, prospects till the year 2020, those were envisioned in this particular topic called ASEAN Vision 2020. So, what had the regional body envisioned? The regional body had envisioned as a concert of Southeast Asian nations, as for Southeast Asian nations, the regional body had envisioned an ASEAN region full of reality by 2020 as a zone of peace, freedom and neutrality. This was envisioned in Kuala Lumpur, December of 1971, that ASEAN region will be a zone of peace, it will be free, it will foster freedom and it will also foster neutrality. As a partnership in dynamic development, ASEAN nations resolved to chart ASEAN 2020 for closer economic integration within ASEAN, within the ASEAN countries. And then as a community of caring societies, ASEAN's nations desired entire Southeast Asian region to be an ASEAN community. It should be conscious of its historical ties, how historically they are bound with each other. It should be aware of cultural heritage and it should be bound by common regional identity. That was the main agenda for ASEAN 2020, ASEAN Vision 2020. Okay. So finally, we see that Vision 2020 was an outward looking ASEAN playing a pivotal role in the international fora, advancing ASEAN's common interests. So that was the main purpose of ASEAN, that was outward looking and it played a pivotal role in the international flora, advancing ASEAN's community interest, common community interests. Okay. Now, in all this, one more thing that we need to look at is India's relation with ASEAN. India continued to pursue close relationships with ASEAN and it followed its policy of look east policy. You can see here look east policy. During the Cold War years, Indian foreign policy did not pay adequate attention to ASEAN. But after that, in recent years, India has tried to make amends. It has signed FTAs. India has signed FTAs with ASEAN and 80% of the goods traded will be duty free. That is what was decided. India has also signed memorandums of understanding, MOUs, with Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, etc. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced that the Look East policy will now be known as the Act East policy. Okay. So the Look East policy will be now as Act East policy and it signified India's efforts in boosting extensive strategic economic ties with Southeast Asian countries through dialogues and joint exercise. So in this way, ASEAN and India are trying to have a good and cordial relationship so that the economic ties of both these countries, of all the countries, is strengthened and India is able to make a place for itself in this forum, ASEAN. Okay, this is the last topic of ASEAN. I hope you have understood and you are free to ask any questions. Next, we will continue with the next topic in our textbook, that is about the third or the next alternate center of power, that is China. Okay, thank you very much.